We're back at it again, talking about anger resolution. But we're going to talk about anger resolution and stress. Anger resolution, remember, we started this whole series talking about how it's not how to white knuckle things and to just hold on and then say, oh, we managed our anger. Well, that's anger management. Anger resolution is like, let's get at the core of why it's there to begin with. Let's dig to the bottom of these things and eradicate them and work through the real problem, the real project we should be working on. And I've said before, many times we're working really hard on something, but it's the wrong project. It's the wrong thing. And it might even benefit you, but it benefits you more if you were working on the real subject, working on what needs to be worked on. So today I just want to remind us that the Bible talks about getting rid of diablos, which is another word for the devil, in Deuteronomy 7, verse 1 through 23, and Matthew 12, verses 43 through 45. And, you know, it tells us not to give place to diablos, not to give place to the devil. And how do we give place? It says, if you go to sleep on your anger, you will give place to the devil. That gives permission for him to show up. And it's the craziest thing. If you go to sleep angry, doesn't mean that you have to resolve everything before you go to sleep. Set a time to resolve it, which relieves the brain so that we're able to say, okay, we're actually going to deal with this. It's when it's not dealt with and you're whipping your covers back and forth and you're turning your back to your spouse or you're twitching your toes and all of that. And then you finally fall asleep. There's all these thoughts that come that justify why you should be angry. And it actually helps us to be more than angry. We start to really dwell on being offended. And so we're not supposed to give place to the devil. And we're taking that back and by getting the skills that we need to be able to say, you know what, if I don't have the answer for this tonight, all right, then I don't have the answer for this tonight. But we are going to get the answer. We're going to set a time to deal with this. If it's between you and another person, you're going to figure it out with God. If it's between you and him, there's so many angles that we can come at that give permission to say, okay, I do want something to stop, but it doesn't all have to be resolved at this moment. And I will be okay. I don't need to be offended. And so when it comes to handling anger correctly, we got to make sure, too, that we don't, one of the things in marriages especially is like, we don't see each other. We're very busy. You finally get in bed together, and instead of it being an intimate time or a peaceful time or a quiet time or a snuggling time, it's like, what are we going to do with this? And then the bedroom itself becomes a place after a while of like stress. It becomes a place where it's like, ugh. A lot of times it'll get more dirty in the bedroom. It will pile more stuff in there though, because there's a processing in the brain that says, this is really stressful. This is really something that I can't deal with right now. And we'll find ourselves keeping other areas clean, but not that. So it's been proven that's how that works. And so anger needs to be dealt with. Anger just basically says, I want something to stop. What is it that you want to stop? Remember, we're going to work on the right project. We're working on a project, but we need to work on the right one. So I want to bounce over to what I talked about before. We're going to talk about stress. And I got this thing on stress, I think it was in the 80s. So I know they know so much more about it now. But even back then, we have to understand anger unresolved hurts the body. I want to put a plug in for the book called The Body Keeps the Score. And when you've been traumatized or you've had something happen, your body actually keeps the score on things. It regulates or dysregulates according to what you've been through. And so here's some facts regarding that. When you feel threatened or you hit a range where it's like, I want something to stop and it doesn't look like anyone's listening, and you climb that scale of 1 to 10 and you're up almost into that rage area, the stress, all sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell are enhanced. your concentration is focused. So literally, your adrenaline many times will go off and you see the thing in front of you only. We're not really paying attention to the surroundings. We're not really paying attention to other people's comments or whatever. It's just, this is wrong and I want it to stop. So when that happens, all your senses become acute in order for you to survive that. That's really what it's saying. The hypothalamus releases endorphins. Endorphins block pain similar to morphine, and in injuries gives second wind during running. So here's the thing. If your endorphins are supposed to block the pain and you've got this going on, all of a sudden, sometimes you feel way too much in an area and other places you can't feel at all. You're not self-aware. You're not feeling what's going on in your body. And that can be edgy. Or we store the thing we were angry about and we're constantly hurting in our body and don't know why. And, on Tylenol, on ibuprofen, on these different things, trying to get the pain to leave the body. So fibromyalgia is a real deal. And, it's one of those things that if anger is trapped inside of us, stress is trapped inside of us, our body gets inflamed. And it takes being able to process that anger to be able to release it and let it out so it's not affecting our body. Then the body doesn't have to keep the score. So thyroid releases hormones into the blood when you come under stress. Thyroid hormones speed up metabolism, burning fuel faster. So this is the response. This is that trauma response and you can do that. It's made to do that. Just like your adrenal glands there's two little glands that sit on the top of your kidneys, and they're made to do that for what? Like a bear jumping out in front of you, like a car accident, the possibility you hit the brakes, and all this changes. You get that adrenaline and everything going. And so in those situations, it comes up, but then your body knows how to process it, and then slowly it will leave the body. Usually takes most adrenaline bursts to truly leave up to 2 hours after they happen. But in any case, in time, though, when you live in a stressful situation and you've got already that your senses become acute and you stay that way, this isn't like a bear jumped out in front of you. This is how I live. I live releasing endorphins. I live with the hormones in my thyroid just being messed around with constantly. Your heart races and it pumps more blood to the muscles and lungs and fuel and oxygen for action. It's getting your body ready to take action. So this is where the less we spike in the anger, the less that we're coming up and just feeling like, I've got to solve world peace. I've got to fix this all right now, and then stay in that range, the less effect it's going to have on your heart. But people who live in that many times will look at the heart like, well, I don't know, the heart malfunctioned. I don't know, the heart was a weak heart or something like that to begin with, when really it was stress over time built up in the muscles and in the neurons and the nervous system. And now there's a heart attack, or now it weakens the heart because of how it had to pump, depending on how much stress. Stress is not our friend. I will tell you that. Some people use stress to motivate what they get done in a day, and don't know how to live without stress for that reason, because they can only work under pressure. And people suffering ADHD, sometimes that's that whole let's wait till the last minute to do something, because we work best under pressure. But then you're working in adrenaline, you're working in cortisol, you're working in a way where it's actually not doing you any good. It's actually one of those things where, we're calling on all of our organs to come to a defense mode. And in that defense mode, we're going to save the day, we're going to help. And so we have to look at it like, we're not intended to be anything but at peace. The peace of God that passes all understanding keeps our heart and our mind in Christ Jesus, just so you know. Our digestive tract, a lot of times people don't connect anger or bursts of adrenaline with the digestion process. Usually you get an upset stomach. Usually you'll either want to eat all sugar because you burned sugar in that anger time, because your body, all the organs went into hyper mode and they burn up the sugar that's there. And then now you're at a deficit and you'll start overeating sugar. And you won't be able to tell when you come down off of that eating sugar process where your line is of where normal amounts of sugar are. So it upsets the system. And you'll have low lows, which will make a lot of people, they'll start drinking caffeine products of any kind or whatever, monster drinks, whatever it is, because now they've lived in stress so long, they burnt up the adrenaline, and you can actually have adrenal deficit or adrenal fatigue is what they call it. It's like you're asking those little glands to constantly be giving doses of adrenaline. And they're like, look, I can't be doing that. I've been saving up for when a bear jumps out in front of me. I'm not going to release this until something like that happens. But when you live in stress on a constant basis, your body can't tell if it's tired. It's not self-aware if it needs a long nap. It's, it'll dysregulate how you are. So if you're going through a lot of stress and you're like, man, I'm so tired, but I just can't sleep, that's part of it. You have dysregulated adrenal function going on, or dysfunction. So the digestive tract gets bursts of enzymes and different things that will just be like, we're going to hyperdigest, and your stomach gets all acidy. So this is where ulcers come from, because the H. pylori and different bacteria love acid in the stomach. And once you get that started, then next thing you know, you can have leaky gut or ulcers, or it just goes down the line, and we'll show up at the doctor's office. And it is interesting how they will ask us questions like, do you feel safe at home? And we laugh. We're like, yeah, I feel safe at home. But the reason they're asking is if you're having stomach trouble, they know if there's a load of stress, that's really what's upsetting your digestive system. Now, you can go and diagnose the symptoms and say, well, you have an ulcer. Or you need to take this to kill the extra bacteria or whatever. But if you stay in the stress, you're just going to keep coming back for rounds of that. So just so you understand, that's how it works. Plus, our stomach lining is a brain in the body. It has its own brain. And so your brain, I'll call it that. Here's your brain. And it's the thinker. It's a regulator. And then your heart has its own brain. And being that your heart has its own brain, it communicates with that brain to this brain. And then your stomach has its own brain. And they all kind of work together. So if your thoughts are going bonkers, it's going to affect your heart, which is going to affect your digestion. And all those brains have to be in sync. They have to be correlating together. So one of the feel-good hormones that's in your brain or chemicals that's in your brain is serotonin. And where does serotonin come from? It's produced in the stomach lining. It's produced in your stomach. So if your stomach is in knots, it can't produce what is needed. It can't help the brain to be calm. It can't help that because what's needed is missing. And so we have to look at how important it is to support our whole body, making sure those brains align and communicate properly to each other and remove the stress. So part of removing the stress is talk about it to the right people. Talk about it with intent to resolve. Talk about it with getting new knowledge. Talk about it with making a plan, because remember I said people without a plan have a plan to fail. So we have to have a plan to walk out of whatever is stressing us, or to be able to face it and go through it. One way or another, we've got to understand that. So your lungs expand, your heart races, your adrenal glands release cortisone, and it upsets the stomach, it upsets the heart, it upsets the chemicals in the brain, And now we're having stress response could easily cause PTSD. Can be a factor that is caused where the brain can't resolve things. It's predicting something bad is going to happen before it happens. That's post-traumatic stress disorder. And then the other stresses or the other disorders that go around that, which basically just means it's not in order, it's not working right, it's not self-regulated. Those things don't disappear either until you get the stress out of your body. So it's a mental thing, it's a heart thing, and it's in the stomach, and it stores there. And it starts many times through abuse. It starts through fear. It starts in those negative emotions. And when that happens, it requires all these different body parts to kick in, your lungs, your digestive tract, your pancreas. When you're going through something stressful, it'll say, "Oh, we need immediate energy," and it will kind of just put in a bunch of insulin or, not process right if this has been going on for a long time. Well, now your blood sugar is going to be all over the charts. So stress really affects our blood sugar. It affects our insulin rates. Your liver helps carry long distance fuel, takes over the blood sugar energy, and is exhausted when you're in a constant state of stress. So somebody will say, "Oh, that's so stressful." That means it's full of stress. Well, you have to ask yourself, what makes different situations stressful for one person or the other? People who their brain is very more digital, that works like 2 + 2 = 4. That's how they like to approach life. That's how their brain just works. They get stressed out by like big malls and a fair where everybody's walking around and there's sounds and there's cotton candy and there's all these choices of everything. They can be in that for a while, but then after a while they're like, "You know what? This is getting really stressful. It's too much." And the emotional brain, the person who's made more emotional, they tap into the underside of their brain. They have so many gifts, things where they can feel what other people are feeling. There's all these different wonderful things. But in the end, they can wear out and not even know they're wore out because they're used to running at a level of adrenaline or being stimulated. And everyone needs a break. Everyone's brain needs a break. Everybody's body needs a break. Now, I'll tell you that, I do a lot of counseling and things like that. So you are listening to troubles of people and things, and you have to take that in, digest it, unpack it, put it away, don't carry it. There's all these different things. Each job that we do, you carry some type of stress if you're not sure how to unpack it and get it off of you. And if we just tolerate it, put up with it, don't, it's like, here we go again, and it's constantly there. The body gets trained in that area, and it will start to gravitate toward whatever negative thing is in your atmosphere, in the people around you, and it will start to respond through digestion and the heart rate and how much oxygen you get, all that. It'll start trying to figure out, now I have to have a long-term plan. To begin with, stress was a burst to them. But the person who's going through constant stress, their body is trying to navigate and have a long-term plan of how they're going to survive this thing to begin with. So it'll set the chemicals up in your system as a survivor. Like, we have to figure this out. And then it's very dysregulated, and we have problems with then turning around and regulating. We have problems relaxing. We have problems sleeping. We have problems just sitting there and breathing. Did you know if you breathe with your shoulders rising and falling, you're in a form of hyperventilation? People sometimes they'll talk and they'll be sharing in a counseling session, and I could tell they're talking about something very stressful because they're not breathing from their stomach where you watch your stomach rise and fall. They're breathing like this, and then the man was chasing me and I didn't know what to do, and you can see their shoulders coming up, or Worse yet, they don't breathe at all. They will go through whole paragraphs and they've never taken a breath. And they're not even aware of it. It's a survival response. I need to survive the moment in this adrenaline response. And so pay attention to how you breathe. I've gone through a lot of traumatic things when I was a kid or whatever. I noticed when I learned about this that we were just watching a show that had a car chase in it. Yeah, I don't remember what movie it was or whatever. And I'm leaning and I'm watching it, waiting, because you're like, who's going to get caught? When are they going to get caught? And you're in this thing. And I realized through all the scenes that it took to catch the guy in the car, I never breathed once. I mean, I'm pretty sure we're meant to breathe more often than what I was breathing. And it was, or you'll breathe very shallow. It's very short when we're stressed. So you literally have to train yourself to breathe in your nose. You do that 3 times and it releases a hormone and some chemicals in the brain that cause your brain to relax. You just breathe in there from your nose, but put your hand on your stomach and make sure your stomach is rising and falling. We're not in a hurry to let the air out. We're not taking the air in. We're slow. You're laying in bed at night. Those breathing exercises can help you sleep. But if we're breathing here, your body is literally in a mode where it thinks it's going to die. You're sending signals to the brain that says, yep, we're dying right now. I can't get oxygen. I'm on the run inside of myself. And you're flipping the covers back and you're rolling over on the pillow and you're twitching your toes and you're rubbing your legs back and forth. Those are all stress responses. So, but if you drink a cup of chamomile tea, if you do breathing exercises, if you decide to make a list and go down that list, these are all the things I have to do tomorrow, and leave it in the kitchen, not in your bedroom, and say, these are the things I'm taking care of tomorrow, but I will take care of them. I'm not going to think about them tonight, though. Give yourself permission to let go of the stress of it all. There's many different things you can do like that so that when your head hits the pillow, now, some people sleep with white noise, and the reason they do that is because that locks in the brain so it can't go all over the place. When you lock into white noise, shh, like that, it's very much the same sound as blood flow when the baby was in the womb. That's what babies heard, right? So that's recorded in your subconscious. But if your brain will lock to not trying to figure out every sound because you just have one sound, shh. Many times people sleep better if there's a fan on. And that's why, because you're not so sensitive to all there was a bird chirp and something hit the window and now it's raining outside. And what was that? Was that the furnace? It's a way of just going, okay, I'm locking all that out and I'm just going to lock into this one sound. So white noise is a decent thing if you're really behind on sleep or a stressful sleeper. So, I want to say that when we have these responses going off and we begin to fear what's happening in our body because we're starting to have symptoms, then the fear adds to more symptoms, which gives us more fear, and then there's more symptoms. I mean, it just keeps going like that. What I want to encourage you to do is really, like we talked about in the last podcast, how are we going to get to the root of the problem? Whatever you're arguing about, whatever you're seeing most of the time, here's the real issue, is not the real issue. I'll give you an example. Working with moms where they'll say, I sat everybody down. We had a house meeting. I told them that I don't want any socks laying around the living room. I want your toys put away when you're done using them. And this is what I'm asking of you. And they did it twice. And then they went back to the old behavior. So then the mom will come through and get angry. Well, then out of her anger, she'll tell them, you get this cleaned up right now. And then they'll clean that up. But it only lasts a couple of days and it goes back to the thing. So she said, I'm just so angry about the socks. And I am so angry about how they're not listening about the toys. I'm about had it. I feel like just getting those toys and piling them in there and taking them to Goodwill, right? So I said, okay, so I could see your anger says I want this behavior to stop. But why you're really angry is a different reason. And she said, no, that's why I'm angry. This is the whole thing. I don't know how to get their behaviors changed. I'm just so mad about their behaviors. I said, well, yeah, that's an irritation. But what is at the root of the family meeting and all the different things? And is the fact that you don't feel heard. And she started crying instantly. And she said, oh my goodness, I don't feel heard. I feel like no matter what I bring up to my husband, to my children, to the family members, whatever, I have never been heard. So then now socks on the floor become, is that a problem? Yes, because she requested that and the kids all agreed to it, that this is going to stop or whatever. So one, you feel lied to, but you feel taken advantage of if you have to do it yourself. Getting ready for company to come or whatever. And there's just so many things that are tied to it that are the first emotions. So you're literally working on the wrong project when you're working on the socks. Can you see it? She was working on the wrong project. We brought her back to working on her not being heard and resolving that. Then when she approached her children, it was like, well, they are children. And I'm not making excuses for them, but they do forget, and it isn't that important to them. But we're going to have consequences around this. We're going to, make a chore list. There's all kinds of plans that can come out of it to help curb their poor behavior. But the whole time, you can still feel heard. And that was her real issue. So when we're carrying stress, many times there's that underlying thing, those first emotions that are attached to bad memories or things that we fear that cause us to stop and become so angry about the item, the thing we're trying to accomplish or whatever, when really at the base of it is, I don't feel that important. I don't feel like I matter. I feel like the slave here. I feel like everyone thinks, whatever, it's just mom. So see, if you dig into it, you then can take action to deal with the real issue. So much of anger resolution is resolving the real issue. We've got to get to the bottom of it and find what it is.